I do have one more question. In the
Yeah,
documentary,
you can ask me 6 more questions.
In the documentary, your parents say there's nothing redeeming about your new album.
Yeah, my parents hated it. And you know what the crazy thing is?
Really?
Yeah, they hated the album. And the thing that's crazy is I played the album for so many different people around the world on all 7 continents. Nobody liked it.
No way.
It was insane. The Maasai tribe hated the album. I played it for some people in Machu Picchu at a spiritual place. They did not like the album. I played it for so many different people, different walks of life, and the results were everyone hated it. But I love it, and that's the reality is this for me. This one's for me.
And this very well could be my last album. We don't know if this is going to be one more maybe, or maybe this is it. But as far as I'm concerned, I feel like this is the end of a trilogy.
Completion? Okay.
There's a world where this is probably going to be it.
Just 2 months before Oliver Tree died in a helicopter crash in Rio de Janeiro, he posted a video that told you everything about where his relationship with his label stood. He looked into the camera and said, "Love you madly, hate you badly" was officially canceled. He was parting ways with Atlantic Records, and behind the scenes, he said, had been nothing short of a nightmare. That video hit different when it dropped. It hits even harder now. Oliver Tree was not some struggling artist complaining about a bad deal. He was one of the biggest pop acts of his generation. Massive streaming numbers, hundreds of millions of views, a fan base that was genuinely loyal and genuinely loud. He had made Atlantic Records serious money. He said it himself, tens of millions of dollars generated for the company. And his claim was that when it came time for them to support his next project, they acted like none of that history existed. The specific grievances he laid out were damning in their specificity. No marketing budget for music videos, no digital ad spend, nobody in the building who seemed to care. He had a Valentine's Day breakout song that never made it to streaming because someone at the label forgot to ingest it into the system. A finished song, ready to go, sitting there on a holiday that would have been a perfect moment to release it, and it never went live because of an administrative failure on their end. He said he did not understand how that was even possible. That detail matters because it is not a vague complaint about creative differences or not feeling supported in some abstract way. That is a concrete, documentable failure. A song does not accidentally miss its release window unless someone dropped the ball. And when you have made tens of millions of dollars for a company and they cannot execute a basic release day upload, the message that sends to an artist is clear: you are no longer a priority. Oliver Tree's situation is not unusual in the music industry. It follows a pattern that has repeated itself across decades with artists who built something real, generated real revenue, and then found themselves on the wrong side of a label that had already extracted what it needed. The problem is structural, and it is built into how these deals work from the very beginning. When an artist signs with a major label, the advance they receive, the number that gets reported as a life-changing payday, is actually a loan. It has to be paid back entirely through the artist's royalty percentage before they see another dollar in royalties. And the royalty percentage is the key detail that most people outside the industry do not understand going in. A standard deal might give an artist 15 to 20% of the revenue their music generates. The label keeps the rest, and the recoupment of that advance comes exclusively out of the artist's small slice. The label is collecting its 80 to 85% from the first day of release. The artist is still technically in debt to the company, while the executives are already in profit. TLC is the most famous illustration of exactly how brutal this math can get. Crazy Sexy Cool sold over 10 million copies. By any reasonable measure, that is one of the most successful albums ever made. And the members of TLC were broke. They broke it down publicly at one point. Their royalty rate worked out to 56 cents per album sold. Multiply that by 10 million, and you get $5.6 million before the label starts recouping studio costs, video costs, marketing costs, tour support. All of that comes out of the artist's side. The label spent $3 million recording the album. The group had to pay that back out of their own royalties. The result was that one of the biggest acts in the world was filing for bankruptcy, while their label was collecting hundreds of millions. That is the same system Oliver Tree was operating inside. And his specific complaint, that the label forgot to upload a song, that nobody cared, that there was no budget, suggests he was at a stage in that cycle where the label had already recouped what they needed and had moved on to the next priority without formally releasing him. The most painful part of how these situations tend to play out is the ownership question. It is the reality that sits underneath almost every major label dispute, and one of the hardest truths for young artists to accept when they first enter the industry. An advance can look life-changing. A recording contract can feel like validation after years of struggling to get noticed. But the money that arrives at the beginning is rarely a gift. It is a loan that has to be paid back through the artist's own success. Every studio session, music video, marketing campaign, tour support package, and promotional expense gets added to the bill. The artist works, the music generates revenue, and the label takes its share first until those costs are recovered. Even when an artist finally reaches recoupment and starts seeing royalty checks, there is often another painful realization waiting for them. They still do not own the music they created. The label owns the master recordings. Those recordings can continue generating money for decades through streaming, licensing deals, film placements, television appearances, commercials, compilation albums, and catalog sales. The songs become valuable assets. The artist becomes a participant in a business built around work they no longer control. The label can sell the catalog to another company. It can negotiate licensing agreements. It can continue monetizing the music long after the artist has moved on. In many cases, the creator has little influence over those decisions and receives only a fraction of the value being generated. For artists who poured their lives into those records, that reality can feel devastating. Oliver Tree understood that frustration firsthand. When fans asked about unreleased music from that period, his answer was blunt and honest. The remaining songs were not coming out. The label owned them. There was nothing he could do about it. He told fans he would continue making music, but there were no immediate plans at that moment. He apologized to the people who had been waiting. He thanked them for sticking with him. Most importantly, he made it clear that he was not finished as an artist. Instead of allowing the situation to define him, he chose a different path. He rebuilt. He created independently. He focused on making music on his own terms rather than fighting endless battles over work he no longer controlled. Eventually, that determination led to the release of Love You Madly, Hate You Badly, a project that represented something larger than just another album. It was proof that he could still create outside the system that had once held so much power over his career. It was a statement of independence, resilience, and artistic freedom. Just weeks later, tragedy struck. On June 14, 2026, Oliver Tree died in a helicopter collision over Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He was only 29 years old. News of his death shocked fans around the world, not just because of how sudden it was, but because of where he was in his career when it happened. For years, he had fought battles that many artists never speak about publicly. He dealt with label disputes, creative limitations, and the frustration of seeing music he believed in trapped behind business decisions he could not control. There were moments when it seemed like the industry might define his story more than his art ever would. But that is not how things ended. Before his death, Oliver had managed to do what many artists spend their entire careers trying to accomplish. He regained control of his direction. He released music independently. He built a direct connection with fans without relying on the system that had once held so much power over his work. His album Love You Madly, Hate You Badly represented more than a collection of songs. It represented freedom. It was proof that he could still create on his own terms and reach the people who supported him. After years of obstacles, he finally got to experience what it felt like to release music exactly the way he wanted. That is why the label dispute does not define his legacy. What he built after it does. People will remember the music, the creativity, the humor, and the unique personality that made him impossible to ignore. They will remember an artist who kept moving forward, even when the odds were against him. Most of all, they will remember someone who refused to let contracts, corporate decisions, or industry politics become the final chapter of his story. The industry may have taken ownership of part of his catalog, but it could never take ownership of his voice, his vision, or the music he created after he walked away. That part was always his. Drop a comment. Do you think major labels have changed since the TLC era, or is the same system still running in 2026?